Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Spiritual Matters Thursdays. I'm your host, Dr. Monikah Ogando. Today we are talking about how does spirituality occur inside of current events. I think sometimes we have it like spirituality occurs in a vacuum, independent of current events, of politics, of economies, et cetera. And I want you to know that that's just a function and a symptom of short-term memory lapses that we have collectively, because it had actually never been that way. Might be that way for you, but historically, for as long as we can remember, if you look through history in any culture, in any country, um, folks who are deeply called spiritually also have a deep sense of social justice. And many of our laws, many of the ways that we do things now have been spurred on because somebody with a spiritual conscience said enough or no more, et cetera, et cetera. The question, though, becomes for us now in the 21st century, and specifically in 21st century America, if you're here or Canada, which is where most of our listenership is from, Canada and the US. The question for you is how, not if, your spirituality occurs inside of current events, but how do you use your spirituality inside of the current events? And here's what I mean by that. Some people stop at the level of does your spirituality inform, like philosophically align with the conversation that's going on, with elections, with the politics, with cultural movements, with laws being passed, etc. Where do you philosophically fall with all of that stuff happening? And you might have a philosophical discussion about it. You might actually decide that this doesn't align with me, and I'm going to um, make it known that I don't agree with this movement, or you might even fall to the rise to the level of I'm going to let my spiritual beliefs dictate some of my behavior. So you might do a protest, you might write to your congressperson, you might create some kind of ruckus in your local community, you might initiate volunteer drives or boycotts, et cetera, et cetera. And then there are some people who just are conscientiously objecting because of their beliefs, because of their spiritual beliefs. There are certain things that they're just not willing to do at the expense of their career, of public opinion, of even their families. So even though this example I'm going to use happened a long time ago, it's one of my favorite people. Least of which the reason is because he was so flawed. And that is Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali was coming up in the United States when the Vietnam War was happening, and he was a very popular, well-known, conscious objector to the Vietnam War. And his position was, I'm not going to fight anybody who doesn't have a problem with me. And I'm not going to fight a war for people who are very openly against me. No, thank you. I'm not doing you that favor. And the government position was, well, if you don't go, then we're going to send you to jail, and we're going to be stripping you of your titles. And he was like, do what you got to do. Do what you got to do, but I ain't going. And for a lot of us, we would pause. We'd be like, wait a minute now, don't mess with my bank, don't mess with my paper. Hold on. God and I can talk in private, but I gotta go to work. And so I want to ask you about how your spirituality shows up inside of current events now, inside of political or economic movements now, social justice issues, whether it's the thorough line is gender, or the thorough line is race, or the thorough line is sexual orientation, or the thorough line is children, or the elderly, or the disabled, or whatever population you have a soft spot in your heart for. How does your spirituality inform the way you move inside of the modern world? And why does it move you in that way, or doesn't move you in that way? And the reason why that question is important is because, hold on a second. Can somebody tell me if the audio is better when I just moved the mic this way? Put a one in the chat if the audio is better now than it was 30 seconds ago. Please, please.
Thumbs up.
Oh, okay, great. Awesome. So the reason I ask you this question is um, because of a quote that I was reminded of recently. And that is, some of you know Martin Luther King, yes? Um, and Martin Luther King was known for saying, um, um, that the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in times of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. I'm going to say it again. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in times of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. And so, does your spiritual belief have you show up in times of challenge and controversy? Or is it just a philosophical exercise? Um, because I think sometimes uh, reduce people reduce their spiritual beliefs to what they do on a Sunday or a Sabbath, or what they do with family or a particular community. And outside of that community, or outside of that day, or outside of that building, or outside of these particular events, schedules in your event, in your calendar, nobody would know where you stand spiritually, because you're kind of vanilla in that way. Your invisibility and your lack of position is strategic, so that you won't lose your job, so that you won't lose social equity in the eyes of people you hang out with, so that you won't be challenged about your inconsistencies or contradictions, so that you won't be put on the spot about some of the, and so that it won't cost you. Uh, again, social equity or money, even career position, promotability, et cetera, et cetera. And so I want to ask you, um, see, the question I want to ask implies the answer you will think I want to hear. But just for the sake of pop culture, do you guys remember Scandal, right, with Olivia Pope? And Harrison was an early character that I love so much, played by Columbus Short, and I'm so still disappointed to this day, 12 years later, that he had to leave the show because of his own personal struggles. But there was a line in that show where he was like, "So are we gladiators or are we bitches?" No, I know you don't expect that kind of language. It's Spiritual Matters Thursday. But that was one of the things that really that line caught my eye, because I think life is always demanding that answer out of you. Elishma, I think I saw your hand up. Will you come on? Um, will you come on and talk with me? Where you at, Miss Lady? You didn't raise your hand. I thought you raised your hand. I know you said in the chat, this is such a good question. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I imagined it. It was just my imagination. Um, Sorrel, you have something? Oh, maybe not. I'm just eager for a conversation. Somebody talk to me. So a lot of times we
Hello.
have,
Ogando.
yes. Where you at?
I'm on my phone and I was
Okay.
having some issues trying to find the unmute button, but
Okay.
this is
Okay.
such a great question because, you know, I gotta say, if I were to be honest, like I feel like I fall somewhere between philosophical, standing on the sidelines, and sometimes it's because I feel very torn
Mm-hmm.
because I myself have varying views. So,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, so much of when I see what's going on with the administration, and I see a lot of like people being so angry, right? And it's all justified. Now, my personal stance, like when it comes to, because I'm so about like women being connected to our bodies and being mindful of the types, if we're like ingesting too much energy of like hate and dissension and just just being mad without letting that stuff process through us and have it be shared constructively, then we end up just kind of swallowing and taking in a lot of poison of negativity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the same time, I don't want to be the spiritual person that's like, oh, it's all about cupcakes and rainbows because I think like, I don't want to bypass it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been wondering because I'm building a brand and I'm like on the back end, like writing about like, what do I stand for? And that's why I said this is such a great question because I'm asking myself these things and I don't, like, I know what I stand for internally, but I don't have it all like defined in language. And I do have a question though around that. Like, how can you, when you have a core stance of, yes, I have a core stance of love and light and community, but I also believe in speaking to what's so, doing the
Yeah.
shadow work within
Yeah.
myself and pointing to, hey, no, that's wrong. And I haven't figured out yet how to integrate that in terms of making a stand out in the world. And I'm curious what your thoughts are about that.
I think the best teacher is experience. And one of the ways to find out where you stand and clarify your position or your stand or your come from, et cetera, is to do certain things, to say certain things, to see how those things land, how they resonate, what price you have to pay for them, and what price you notice that you're unwilling to pay for them. Because that also clarifies your position. There are certain things I'm not willing to talk about in public. There are certain things I'm willing to talk about in certain environments. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It doesn't make me a coward or a courageous person. These are just the decisions that I make, right? And so I think one of the reasons why sometimes people stay silent is because they're like, I don't want to get it wrong,
Yeah,
or I don't want to have to be called to account on something that I'm not even sure of. And
right.
so you have to decide for yourself how comfortable you are with people watching you or process. Yeah, that it's like
Oh,
I'm growing into something. I'm maturing or I'm evolving or my opinion is changing and I may not feel this way tomorrow or whatever, but here's what I have so far. And how willing you are to have that be witnessed and by whom.
yeah. I like that. Thank you. I'm going to really sit with this question for myself because
Yeah.
I think it's a really important one. And I feel like I'm itching I didn't have it even distinguished until you just said it. Like I'm itching to process out loud and let it just be, and
Yeah.
to be honest, I feel nervous because I don't want to be labeled as this like, oh, love and light, I don't face the shadows, like I don't honor what's so, but I also am not interested in having vent session after vent session with people either. So yeah, thank you for your this question and your feedback. And I think it's really bold and it makes me really want to go deep and say, whoa, what do I stand for? And lastly, I'll say I felt a little bit embarrassed to even speak up because I'm like, dang, I think I am kind of on the sidelines, and it feels a little bit icky to admit, but I appreciate the invitation to like have it be just a little less heavy, in
Yeah,
admitting it. So thank you.
you're welcome. And you brought up, I heard something in what you said, Giovanni, I'm gonna get to you in just a second. I heard something in what you said that I think is important to articulate for everybody in this community, and that is that you said you felt a little bit embarrassed even admitting it, right? And so part of how we build community and how we build brands, as it were, is by speaking authentically about our truth, even as our truth evolves and changes. That's point number one that I want to make again. I already made it. But the second piece that I want to say is that um, if you look at in biology and you look at your own human anatomy, when there is an infection, when there is a foreign object that your body is like, we don't like this, we gotta get rid of this. The first thing that comes to that injury or that infection area are the white cells, the ones that are responsible for cleaning up your system and keeping it injury free and disease free, etc. They don't ignore the pus, the blood, the infection. They go straight to the injury, they go straight to the infection, they go straight to what doesn't belong here, and they surround it. In fact, that's the reason why you get pus in your body, because it's like whatever the injury is, that white liquid surrounds it so it doesn't infect anything else. And I just think that's such a masterful analogy for and suggestion for how we get to interact with injustices and the injuries that we cause one another in the world, socially, economically, etc. That we speak to it directly, that we address it directly, that we don't tap dance around it, that we're like, the healers, the white cells of our consciousness go straight to the injury and say, yeah, this isn't right. But not
Yeah,
from a place of attack, but from a place of we're going to surround this injury until it cannot infect anything else.
right.
And it's actually an embracing of sorts. Like, let me take this on so that the rest can be. Um,
Yeah.
I
Wow.
I
Thank
wanted
you.
to give you that to consider how that might play in the way you move in the world.
Thank you so much. Wow. This has been so valuable. Thank you.
Giovanni.
Monica. So when I raised my hand, I was waiting for my client to come. And my client is here, so I can't engage anymore. I have to go now.
Okay.
But I was creating room for Rose. Rose was sending me a text saying, please don't talk. Let me talk.
That's a good passing of the ball
It's a
there,
great,
Master.
great conversation. Really great conversation. Thank you, Dr. Ogando. I'm going to jump into my next call, but I'm loving it. Bye.
Wasn't that just expertly done? Thank you. Rose, come on up.
I know, right? Uh, so I was actually on YouTube, but the question was so engaging, I had to change over so I could be with you and have a
Nice.
conversation.
Dr.
So yeah, so it's not all well formulated in my head, but when you started talking, I could all of a sudden I got this picture of like concentric circles, this size and going, out like that, and it's like, the like the closest circle, the smallest circle, the tightest circle, I should say, is family, and it's my children, my grandchildren, my brothers and sisters, like, and so where my family is involved, my intention and my commitment is, I'm mama bear
Yes.
in those circumstances, right? And everything about me surrounds that. It's like I am the pus, right?
Mhm.
I'm the reactive uh, outcome of the attack, and I'm also the surroundings and protective,
Only
fortress.
if Daily Huddle could I am the pus be a compliment and a flex. Go on.
No, us before, but I was like, oh,
Yes.
see, he's
Yes.
a boss. Right? But anyway, then the next circle out is, that's, it's my communities, right? So, my friends, my, personal growth and development things, my Course of Miracles group. I mean, so that's, there's the next layer.
Yes.
And I look and I see who and how I am spiritually with my communities. And then there's a larger community, and that just the city where I live, and or the extended family that I, really don't even know that well, but my commitments to them, and then there's, there's the country, and where do I stand with respect to that? Because I see that I've been a little bit hesitant to be on loudspeaker about how I really feel and how I really want things to go. But yet I do have commitments to projects that would make a difference. We were working with the Rosa Parks Museum and Library down in Montgomery, Alabama, to redo their exhibit so that people would have more of a feel of not just what she did, but who she was, which has now been, that project is frozen based on, instructions to the universities to shut down their DEI projects if they want their federal funding, right? So like, where do I stand? How do I get on loudspeaker about that? I've been hesitant trying to figure out how do I do that without putting myself in a limelight that, I don't want to have to deal with the potential controversy and all of that. So, I mean, you're really making me look and say, wow, like, are you, what's the extent of your commitment? And does your commitment have, what's the word I want to use? Does it have,
Teeth.
you know, so, yeah. So, are your commitments hedged based on what? So you really have to look. And then of course there's For the World, and I'm in, I want a world that works for everyone, right?
Right. Right.
So you're making me look.
This
but
is great.
Yeah, where I stand. And one of the things that I have been working on is just the freedom to say, just the sheer freedom to say. Um, I was sharing on a different call a little bit earlier today. I have a sister. My sister is great. She's she's a more refined, or a more unleashed version of me.
Okay.
It's anything I say to her, she's got a response. She always has to clap back. And I, finally I picked up the phone and called her and said, "Hey, I got something to say to you, and don't want you to clap back."
Oh, okay. Yes. Establish the rules before we play the game. Exactly.
Yeah, right. So the freedom to say, and then you come up with this conversation. I'm like, oh, so I have to look at that again.
Yeah.
Am I, where's my freedom to stand inside of my commitment, no matter what, no matter where it falls in my concentric circles,
Yes.
and to just be true to myself and what I actually believe and want and am learning
Yeah.
about
Awesome.
myself and the world itself.
Yeah, it's a good place to look. Absolutely. Thank you,
Yeah,
Rose. I love
thank
that.
you.
Elishua says, yes, Rose, I love that.
I
Because, if you can't say amen, say ouch. You know what I mean?
know.
So here's the other thing that I want to mention. I mentioned two already with Elishua, and I'm going to mention a third one. And that is that consider, I'm not going to assert this like it's the truth, but I'm going to share with you all my position. Consider that you are already disciplined about the things that you are disciplined about, that you are already committed to the things that you don't need more commitment. You don't need more discipline. You don't need more focus. You are already focused on the things that matter to you. You are already committed to the things that matter to you. What you're deciding is to manage your orientation. Right? People think, oh, I need to be more committed to my health. No, you already have all your commitment. You're committed to cookies. Right? All you're ever doing is managing your orientation. It's like, oh, I'm moving the commitment I already have that I'm directing towards, comfort, I'm going to now direct it towards discomfort, or I'm going to now direct it towards visibility that creates that level of, right. And the only thing, oh my gosh, well, I'm not going to say the only thing because that's kind of reductive, but the primary thing that is stopping you from doing that, um, from changing, from managing your orientation from the cookies to the fitness, to use a really basic example, is the nervous system capacity. Your nervous system capacity to sit in your discomfort, in unfamiliarity. There's a liminal space. There's like this limbo, this bridge that happens between your old reality and your new reality. And that bridge is uncomfortable, is unfamiliar, it is uncertain. And your capacity to shift your commitment from the familiar to the unfamiliar depends on your ability to sit at that bridge long enough. That's a nervous system regulation issue. That is a support issue, right? Because we're not just your biology, you're also your community, you're also your beliefs, you're also your habits, et cetera, right? So you have internal systems and external systems. So I want to say that because, we here at the Daily Huddle, particularly in Spiritual Matters Thursday, we know that as above, so below. We know that as within, so without. So this idea of you have me questioning how I show up out there and what I really believe, et cetera, that begins inside. Do you honor yourself? Do you stand up for yourself? Do you make uncomfortable decisions for the sake of your highest good? Because if you cannot be trusted with the one person that's going to be with you from birth to death, Lord have mercy, it's a crapshoot whether you're going to be there for community or culture or civilization. Right? So let's start with those concentric circles that Rose mentioned, that it's like, how do you honor yourself and the things that you say matter to you? Because nobody put those words in your mouth. You said that. Right? And so when you can take yourself to task on that, then it's like, oh, okay. So inside of current events, politics, voting, economy, homelessness, women's rights, et cetera, I am only as present and as visible to that as I have been willing to be present and available and visible to myself. And when you think about what those external issues represent, right? Whether it's, rights, well, what is my relationship to power, to authority, to my own power, to my own authority as a creation and an emanation of the divine? Do I honor my right to choose and to stick with my decisions? Or am I constantly negotiating with myself because I don't trust myself to be sovereign? Sometimes we like, oh, I'm going to call so-and-so so she could be my accountability buddy, when what you want is a babysitter. Right? So just, again, put that in your pipe and smoke it. That perhaps it's not that there's anything for you to fix, or there's nothing for you to move around. Because if you move it around at the level of, oh, this makes me look like a bad person, let me go do something different, visibly, behaviorally, that doesn't change anything at the consciousness level of internally. At the consciousness level, I have an issue with authority. And so I'm not going to respect my own authority, and therefore I'm not going to have a healthy relationship with the authority that looks like it's outside of me. So that's how you act with current events. The way you act with yourself. Stacy says, great conversation, committed to cookies. So listen, you guys, go grab your journal, go grab a piece of paper, go grab your voice memo on your phone and talk to yourself about where you stand and how you are and who you be and who you want to be and how you've decided to shift based on this conversation over the many that you've had, because this is not the first memo you've gotten. Come home to yourself. This is just the latest one. We love you. Please exercise. Remember that twerking is a Kundalini raising exercise, a spiritual practice. Elisha can attest to that. Eat more plant-based, stress less, sleep, Get yourself at least 7 to 9 hours. And if you are if you're a woman and you're on your moon, please get more. Okay, your body has different needs depending on the seasons and the cycles of your life. Also, laugh and give of yourself. And of course, audit your assumptions. Check yourself before you wreck yourself, and certainly before you wreck anybody else. We love you. See you next time.